Hello, I'm Helen Humphrey, and this is the Iran War Today, our 10-minute daily briefing with all you need to know on day 36 of the US-Israel war with Iran. Well, let's start with some of today's key developments. The race to find a second crew member from a US military jet shot down over Iran continues as Iranian officials offer a reward for anyone who captures them. Fresh reports emerge of a second jet, part of the American rescue efforts, also shot down on Friday. That pilot reportedly ejected over the Gulf and has been rescued. Strikes continue across Iran. There are reports from Iranian media that industrial and energy sites have been targeted in the latest wave of US-Israeli strikes. And Iranian missiles make it through Israeli air defences, striking a building just outside of Tel Aviv. Well, US and Iranian forces are continuing their search for an American airman missing after a US F-15 fighter jet was shot down over Iran on Friday. One other crew member has been rescued by US forces. Iranian officials have reportedly urged citizens to help find the missing crew member alive, and state media says that a reward will be issued for their capture, meaning much could rest on whether the US or Iran finds him first. Well, with me now is Mikey Kay, military analyst for the Security Brief. Always good to have you with us, Mikey. So let's just discuss this scenario then, when you have a missing military personnel member behind enemy lines. Just talk us through what those rescue efforts look like.
Yeah, the last 24 hours we've seen combat search and rescue. So we've seen HC-130s. I think we've got some footage of the HC-130J Hercules and the two HH-60 Jolly Green 2 helicopters. They've been scouring that area inside Khuzestan province. One of the crew members, as you've already said, is rescued. One of the crew members, one of the airmen, the location is still unknown. There has been an additional A-10 Warthog. They were the aircraft that we saw on the introduction there. That was targeted and shot at by a surface-to-air missile. Likely indications, I would indicate that would be a manpad, so shoulder launched. That managed to limp back towards Kuwait, and there was an ejection over the Gulf. Now, I spoke to a former British military negotiator. That's the A-10 there. That's the one that's sustained the strike, but managed to limp back over the Gulf, and there was an ejection, and the pilot reportedly got out and is safe. But I spoke to a former British military negotiator today who also conducted hostage debriefs, and I wanted to get his insight on what the second airman of the US F-15E that's been shot down might be facing. Take a listen. We're assuming here that the second crew member of the US F-15E has ejected and is situated somewhere inside Khuzestan province, which is in Iran, and it's on the border of Iraq. What are the protocols that crew member will be deploying to avoid capture?
Well, first and foremost, Mikey, he or she will want to get rid of any kit they can get rid of, and if they get the chance, to bury it if the ground so allows them to do that. In addition to that, in regards to themselves, their whole persona will be extremely heightened in terms of adrenaline, their hearing, sight, smell, because what they'll be doing is wanting not to engage with anybody whatsoever. So although they'll be heading, in this case, hopefully due west, what they need to remember is that they need to stay out of harm's way. And if we think back to the first Gulf War, and Mr. McNabb and Bravo 20, what gave them away straight away was the goat herder. So it's very important that that individual, he or she, manages to stay completely out of sight, if at all possible.
Now, the first crew member, the combat search and rescues found the first crew member, and we don't know whether it's the pilot or the weapon systems operator. They found the first crew member within roughly about 12 hours. What's hindering the detection and extraction by the combat search and rescue crews of the second crew member?
Well, first and foremost, we don't know if the beacon itself is operational. Was it serviceable in the first place? Was it damaged when he or she exited the aircraft, or was it damaged on landing? It's important to remember also that certain powers have the ability to hand information to Iran to get around that encryption. So it's very, very important to remember that in terms of that extraction, the longer it goes on, also the greater the Iranian forces are going to flood into that area to seek out this individual, whoever he or she is.
And are there any scenarios where the second crew member could have been captured, but the Iranians aren't letting on to that?
Well, yes. The Iranians, no doubt, want to find this individual if they already haven't done so. Because if I put my nasty head on, I will have kept saying, yes, we can't find this individual whatsoever, because what they will do, or might have the capability to do, is fire that beacon in, draw the American forces in to take them out as well. So that's important to remember that. They're not going to play to any rules of letting this person, he or she, just get away scot-free.
So you're saying there's a scenario where they could have actually captured the second individual,
correct,
but then they'll turn that beacon on, which will then draw in additional combat search and rescue forces
They
from the
could
US.
turn the whole scenario on its head.
Mikey, a really interesting interview there, and just worth saying that we had protected the identity of the hostage interrogator and debriefer because of the sensitive nature of the work that he had conducted in the past. But just going back then to this missing airman, what will be going through their head right now in this most stressful of scenarios? What kind of training will they have carried out to prepare for, this scenario?
Yeah, there's all crews should be trained in survival, then what's called E&E, which is escape and evasion. And then hopefully it won't come to that, but what's called R2I, which is resistance to interrogation. So they should all be trained in that. Now, training is very different to the reality of being on the ground, but hopefully that training will kick in. But there's the unknown here as well of the physical condition of that airman. Not just surviving the ejection, which is quite brutal. It's like 25 Gs, you punched out the aircraft in the ejection seat, and then you're going into a quite significant airflow. But also where they're landing, and if they've sprained an ankle, broken a limb, that's obviously going to impede the escape and evasion bit. But I think here, the conclusion of this for me is that the window of greatest success for the extraction of these crew members was when the first crew member was extracted after about 12 hours. From now on in, there is an exponential decay of success as time goes by, and that's because Iranian forces, IRGC, will be flooding that area. They'll be flooding that area with vehicles, dogs, locals. They've got the Basij militia, which number up to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on a wartime footing. They'll have thermal cameras. These crews are trained to move at night if they can move, but they'll have the hunting forces will have thermal cameras to track these people down. So as time goes by, the expectation of success will decay rapidly.
Mikey Kay, military analyst for the Security Brief, running us through all of that. Mikey, really good to get your insights. Of course, it is worth saying you can watch the full version of Mikey's interview with a former hostage interrogator on the BBC News YouTube channel. Now, there has been no official comment from the Pentagon or the White House regarding the downed jet, but speaking to NBC News in the US on Friday, President Trump said that he didn't believe that the incident would affect any future negotiations, telling them simply, quote, "It's war." But in a post on social media this afternoon, Donald Trump gave Iran a 48-hour deadline to make a deal, or as he put it, all hell will rain down on them. Well, our North America correspondent, Simi Jalil, is following developments from Washington.
President Trump's latest Truth Social post was a reminder of that 10-day deadline that he had given Iran about 2 weeks ago, that if they didn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz, if they didn't agree to a new deal by Monday, the 6th of April, that the US would target its power plants and would obliterate its energy infrastructure. This is one of a few shifting deadlines that the president had given. And it comes amid this build-up of a US military presence in the Middle East. There's a lot of speculation as to whether this is a sort of pressure tactic amidst talks with Iran that President Trump has claimed is going well, even though Iran says those talks are not happening, or whether this is a lead-up to a possible escalation in the war, such as a ground invasion, perhaps attacks along Iran's shoreline in order to free up the strait, or a possible seizure of Iran's Hague Island in order to give the US more leverage during these talks. The White House has said that the US is simply expanding its military option amidst these so-called peace talks with Iran.
Now, Iran has continued to fire more missiles at Gulf states, Iraq and Israel today. The UAE says that it intercepted some 23 missiles and 56 drones. That is in the last 24 hours alone, while debris from an intercepted attack caused damage at the Dubai Marina. Well, we can speak now live to our senior international reporter in Jerusalem, Joel Gunter. Joel, good to have you with us. Firstly, I just want to ask you whether there's been any reaction to the news of this downed American jet over Iran.
No official reaction here today from Israeli officials. We do understand that Israel is cooperating, sharing some intelligence, and has agreed to stop launching airstrikes against the specific area where this member of the American aircrew may be missing. Now, we've heard from Iranian military officials, from a spokesman for Iran's military command today, that they are saying that this downing of the jet was because of a new advanced Iranian air defense system, boasting that it was a humiliation for both the US and for Israel. It does show that, however badly degraded Iran's air defense systems are, that it is still capable of downing US jets. Israeli defense officials had said previously that they had pulverized Iran's defense systems, and the US defense Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth similarly had boasted of total air superiority and the crushing of Iran's air defense systems. But this does go to show that they still have the capacity to potentially down an American jet. President Trump and American officials haven't said a lot directly about the jet, but as we heard there, he has reiterated this deadline about the Strait of Hormuz and threatened to rain down fire on Iran.
Indeed, and all the while, further strikes on Israel and across the Gulf today, essentially no sign of this war slowing down.
No, absolutely not. Just in the last couple of hours here in Jerusalem, we have had yet more sirens, followed by the sound of successive, very loud booms, very likely detonations by Israel's interception system of missiles or drones from Iran. So more fired into Israel today. And that's the story across the region in a way. We've heard from the United Arab Emirates that they have intercepted dozens of drones and missiles from Iran, again showing that Iran still has that launching capacity. Israel has been continuing strikes against Lebanon and operating militarily in the south of Lebanon, and we've heard just in the past few hours from the Israeli military that a member of the IDF was killed in clashes with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. We've also seen increasing strikes across the region on infrastructure, most notably in Iran. An Israeli strike which killed a worker outside an Iranian nuclear plant. So concerns there, although we understand that the nuclear plant itself was not damaged, and the IAEA says no higher levels of radiation detected. But it does lead to concerns about an escalation across the region in strikes against industry and civilian infrastructure.
Joel Gunter there reporting from Jerusalem. Good to talk to you, Joel. Well, throughout the conflict, the BBC's Persian service has been hearing from ordinary people inside Iran. Since news of the US jet being shot down has emerged, they have received messages from people inside the country keen to share their thoughts on what this could mean for the conflict. Well, the following messages are spoken by colleagues at BBC Persian.
I reckon this is meant to set up a ground invasion. I mean, more than 30 days into the war, your aircraft ends up destroyed, your pilot stuck in another country, you can take out the missile site, but you hit a bridge instead. It's not exactly impressive, is it?
If someone had told me the story of this war and it was about another country, I would have said it was an imaginary story.
The US has done things they hadn't done before in Iran, I think. The situation is not normal. I hope they don't take the pilot as a hostage.
Well, with me here in the studio for a final thought is Kasra Naji, special correspondent for BBC Persian. Very good to have you with us. I'm curious as to how the regime is communicating about the fact that there is a downed US jet in Iran, and how the Iranian people are reacting to the fact that they've also been charged with the task of finding this airman.
Yes, and the latest on that is that Iran's Revolutionary Guard have issued a statement saying that we have not captured this second pilot. There were two pilots. One was rescued. The other one is being searched for. And why the Iranian Revolutionary Guard feels necessary to issue a statement is, I don't know. But there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation is being injected into all this for various reasons. But at the same time, we know that Iranians have offered a reward on Iranian state television for whoever captures this man or woman, and something like $60,000 or $70,000 worth of a reward. And don't forget, and a lot of people are energized by that, I suppose. This area is that they're looking for, it's about 100 kilometers inland from the northern tip of the Persian Gulf, if you have that in mind. Just 100 kilometers north in that area is a mountainous area, and it's populated mostly by tribal people, Qashqai tribes. And many of them are armed, traditionally were armed, and they have the old sort of rifles and revolvers and that sort of thing. And a lot of them, I guess, are energized by this reward to get out there and try and find him. But apart from what I just said about Iran's Revolutionary Guard statement, nothing else has been put out today regarding what is going on in that area.
And I guess just more broadly, we are 5 weeks now into a war. President Trump has claimed that they had total air dominance. That has clearly been punctured by all of this now. That, coupled with the fact that the Strait is still effectively blocked, reports that Iran could work with Oman when it comes to a toll system. Where does this leave any Iranian appetite to actually come to the table to make a deal?
You might as well ask. I don't know. The point is that this war doesn't show any signs of abating, and both sides are in it. It seems for a while at least. There are no signs of things coming down, the tension coming down. And today, as you just heard it from Mikey, that the Iranians are saying that they have a new air defense system. I don't know where that comes from, where they got a new air defense system, if there is a new air defense system. And at the same time, the two sides are at loggerheads, as far apart as they have been. And just now, a couple of hours ago, President Trump has just issued another warning to Iran that it will rain hell on Iran in 48 hours if they don't come to the table and agree to a deal. And the Iranians are saying that we have not sort of got to that point yet.
Well, BBC's Persian special correspondent, Kasra Naji, there. Always good to have your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Well,